Welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey, and we are going to go to Campbelltown, and we're going to the revived distillery, Glengyle, and of course what you're seeing here says Kilkerran, and the reason for that is because Glengyle is actually a trademark name of a Lochloven blended whiskey that had already been established prior to the recreation of the Glengyle Distillery. So, a little bit of history on Glengyle. I've actually done a brief history, prior to this actual review of the whiskey. So I'm not going to get too involved here with all the details. What I'll say is that it was founded in 1872 by William Mitchell of the famous Campbelltown Mitchell family, and it was as a result of an argument with his brother John. The two of them were involved with the dad in Springbank Distillery originally, and because of the argument, William left. He worked with his other brothers there, who were at the neighboring distillery, and basically decided himself, right next door to where he was working, I am going to start another distillery. Now the distillery was completed in, I believe, 1873, started 1872, 1873. And I think at one point the roof blew off, so he didn't have a really good start. But anyways, he did get good production. The unfortunate thing is that the challenges with the economy and getting past World War I, economically he was challenged to hang on to the distillery. It wasn't producing dollars, and so he sold it to Highland Malt distillers, and they, after a couple of years, mothballed it. By 1925 it was shut down. They sold a lot of the equipment. The buildings were basically left, and they've been used through the years, rifle range, warehouses, in more recent years than that by the Farmers Co-op in Campbelltown there. But anyways, brief history. Hedley Wright, great-great-grandson of the founder of Springbank, decided to invest and refurbish those buildings. Now, pretty much all the equipment is gone, so it was a major to get this distillery up and running again. But the buildings were intact. There is a video on it, and it tells you the work that was involved. There was a lot of work to get a lot of the equipment into that building. They had to take the roof off. They had to get a crane. They were fortunate that when Ben Weiss Distillery had been mothballed and then basically demolished, the stills were still around, so they used the Ben Weiss stills, and they got a little gift from Craigalkey, and they got their Bobby Mill. So bit by bit, the mash tun was manufactured by Forsyth. They are the famous still and mash tun manufacturer in Scotland there, and of course the washbacks were done out of a firm in Dufftown. Basically, some stuff, yeah, it had to be new. But anyways, the end result is we have now a third distillery in Campbelltown. The other two, of course, Springbank and Glen Scotia. And that's why I've showed you, here's the Springbank. I want to just sort of give you a little bit of a display of the distilleries here, Springbank, and of course Glen Scotia. Now, interestingly enough, I have several Glen Scotia whiskeys. They were easier for me to get than, let's say, a Springbank or let's say a Kilkerran, which really is kind of part of the Springbank family. So anyways, we're going to get started here, and we are going to do a review of the Kilkerran 12, which was launched in, I believe, 2016, and it is the core of their range. They do have other presentations. I sort of think of this a lot like a Springbank long grow. They're using somewhere between a 12 and a 15 ppm peated malted barley from Springbank, and so there will be some similarities between this and the long grow. Anyways, so we are going to review the Kilkerran from Glengyle Distillery. Some people make comments of the confusion between the Kilkerran name and of course the idea that they go look for a Glengyle whiskey, they might actually end up with a Loch Lomond whiskey. I don't quite get that one, but the Loch Lomond whiskey is a blended malt. It's a voded malt. This is a single malt. It has quite a historic label on it here that shows the tower. I believe that's a church tower there. Just kind of get that up close. Nice color to the whiskey too. Again, this is malt from Springbank, so it is. There is, until they get their own malting floor up and running again, which they are working on. They'll be using the maltings from Springbank. Springbank does everything. They do everything from the beginning, the maltings, right up to the bottling. So there's an advantage being part of the Mitchell family, and of course, to let you know that Hedley Wright, great grandson of the founder of Springbank, but he's also the chairman of Springbank. So you can see the relationship between this and Springbank. Okay, let's give it a pour. And non-chill filtered, no coloring added, 46% ABV. And we'll take a look at it there. My understanding is 70% bourbon and I believe 30% sherry cask. So, the nose. Very light peat. This is not a Isla peat. Even lighter than Lechek. It's the Tobermory Lechek. It has almost a tartness to it. I'm almost getting a Glencadam tartness there. And, you know, again, you get a whiff of the smoke. So 12 to 50% ppm. And a wee bit of the licorice coming through. So the body on this, when I do the nose, the body's not real heavy, but there is some different layers to it. Again, not your typical Isla, and it's not a Talisker. It's got a lightness to the peat, and like I say, you get a whiff of that smoke, but not really heavy maritime notes, or not a lot of iodine, or you know, we're not smelling the kelp and the ocean. I mean, this could be it could be even a Speyside with a bit of smoke to it, or probably more like a lowland with a little bit of smoke to it. So, the palate. Right off the bat, sweetness and tartness mixed together. Berries, some caramel and fruit. We're getting actually a blast of berries right now. A little bit of the peat on my tongue, but not strong. It's very light. We're getting, with the licorice there, I'm going to say maybe a little bit of cinnamon, but I'm going to say maybe a little bit more of the allspice. Boy, I'm getting spices, but it's not really cinnamon. Give me a bit here. I'm going to top it up there. We're definitely getting more baking spices, and the malt's really coming through. So with the malt, because it's not really a strong smoke, that's why I'm getting the malt. Very slight bit of wood, but the sherry is now coming through, and that's where we're getting the caramel, fruity caramel. The bourbon is more the caramel vanilla, and it's a mix. It's flashing back and forth between the two, so it's just a nice balanced drink. So let's go for the finish here. Nice coating on your tongue. There's definitely some viscosity to it. So when I said the nose was a little bit lighter, I thought it was lighter. There is more body. You really notice it in the finish here. So we've got a medium finish. And again, I am getting the malt mixed with a bit of the licorice notes I mentioned earlier. And the caramel. The vanilla is still there. What I like is being able to get the malt and still just a little whiff of smoke in the background. So we're going to say medium finish and nice layers. Not a complex drink, but a really nice dram. So I don't know if we always have to have complex drinks. You know, we can have something that is really just a nice, easy sipper, and that's what this is. It's just got enough smoke to give it some dynamics, and it's got a nice flavor to it. I think there's a little more complexity than some of the Glenlivets and maybe some of the, maybe some of the Glenfiddichs in that, but and certainly in a lot of the more common ones we know, I would say this has definitely a little more complexity than those whiskeys, but don't expect it to be over the top in trying to analyze what's here. It's simplistic. You have a whiff of smoke with a nice kind of sweet, tart presentation, and a bit of malt, a little bit of that grain coming through, a little bit of the wood. Let's add a little bit of water. I like the bottle. I didn't get it right up close there. Just, and that is their traditional label there. So with the water, let's give it some nose. Oh, I'm taking a Glencaddam, and I just got a good whiff of, I've said it before, it's, I'm going to say apple crisp or huckleberry crisp, maybe even better, huckleberry crisp, sweet, tart, Um, I don't know why I'm getting a bit of the Glengyle in there, but and smoke's maybe faded a wee bit, but just a beautiful nose there. So it brings out a more of that tartness and the berries. And like I say, I'm using the Huckleberry Crisp. If you've never had Huckleberry Crisp, delicious. So it's sweet and tart. It's that sweet and tart mix. And of course the malt. Maybe even a little granola. Some almonds. Okay, palate. So we've taken the a little bit of the tartness there, and we've turned it into like a sweeter Huckleberry Crisp. Maybe even getting closer to maybe an apple pie, a sweet apple pie. Yeah, the tongue tells me about the smoke really, but it's not. It's certainly in the background, but you get the texture on your tongue there. And water does this okay. It does it okay. I think it's going to be a preference. It's going to be whether it's a 46er, so some of you are going to like water with it, and some of you might want to have it neat. So, but it doesn't hurt it. I would really be cautious how much water I'd add. Overall, this is close to a Longrow. I did get an opportunity to have a few glasses of Longrow with a friend that had brought a bottle back from Great Britain, and it does remind me a lot of the Longrow, the peated Springbank. But overall, this is a really decent whiskey. It's a certainly deserving a fair score. I'm gonna say this one's going to be somewhere in the 85, 86 range there. It's just got everything in place. It's balanced. Like I say, not overly complex, but it's a balanced whiskey. It's got a lot to, I think, offer a person that is more of a sipper. You can drink it neat, or you could drink it with a little water. And I think most people that are not heavy into peat would like this. If you just want to get kind of just a bit of touch of peat, this is the drink for you. So, from Campbelltown, Glengyle Distillery, revived, and part of this family here, the Glen Scotia, the Springbank, and now the Glengyle. And the story, of course, there is that is what's keeping that as a region. It's being treated as a region, the same as the Highland, the same as the Lowland, the same as the Speyside. Now, we know a Speyside's got a zillion distilleries, but the argument that helped them get recognition for Campbelltown being a distillery area or region is that the lowlands were down to 3 distilleries, and it was also an area that had a pile of distilleries, but during the recessions, the 30s, there we just saw all these distilleries disappear. And of course, Campbelltown, in the days when the famous writer Alfred Bernard, when he I think it was in the 1887, he toured Campbelltown, and in his book there he mentions that he called it the whiskey metropolis of Scotland. So it wasn't Speyside, it was Campbelltown. There was over 30 distilleries operating, and of course, with tough times, and when they got more desperate, they made their whiskey, they ran it through the stills faster. The whiskey did not have the quality. They were using grain whiskey, etc., etc., and it lost its quality. It lost its, its intrigue. It's amazing that this company here, Springbank and Glen Scotia, did survive that, and it's good to see that they've got another one of the distilleries up and running, and I believe it is just because of the fact that those buildings were intact. If those buildings weren't intact, we wouldn't have had that distillery in place. So 86 is my score, and I'm going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently, do not drink and drive, and until the next time, so long.